start working on this?
Well, we talked in the summer just about what it looked like, where his head's at, what are his thoughts. But really, I think I took the first concrete something to his agent and Matt about week 3. And then you just kind of go back and forth. And then, the market is weird this year, right? There's so many positions that have opened mid-season. So I would say the last couple of weeks, because of all of the jobs opening, it started moving faster, and then culminated again this morning. I will tell you that, and this is mostly joking, but a turning moment for us was when we announced the boys from Oklahoma and Turnpike Troubadours. And Matt said, "Are you kidding me?" And he turned and he has a Turnpike Troubadours poster framed on his desk. He said, "That's my very favorite group." I said, well, "You ain't getting tickets unless you're here." So no, and it's a little bit of a joke, but as he talked about all of the things, the life here, I mean, there's a lot to it. And he's been straight with me. I don't know if everybody believed how straight he was being. He's been straight with me since the day I got here about wanting to be here.
Was it important for you to be proactive with that early in the season before the Penn State job even opened up?
3 rules. Number 1, take care of somebody, compensate them for what you believe they're worth before you have to. So that's why you're proactive. Number 2, when you have what you think is a great coach, you have 2 obligations. Number 1 is to compensate them at what is the market for your expectations for where the program should be. And then number 2, put them in a position to succeed. The money's there any place, but not every place can you be in a position to succeed. His desire is the same as my desire. Let's compete for and ultimately win a national championship again. How do we make sure this place can be that, while making sure he's compensated at the market of what the expectations for our competitive success should be?
You have a kind of a unique perspective in that you're very close into the program, but you don't have to coach it, so you're able to kind of watch it. You're also part of the committee, the CFP committee, and so there's an escalator in here tied to the CFP. How do you feel like the team is positioned to compete annually for one of those 12 slots, especially compared to what you're watching every week?
We're in a better position than we were last year, and last year was a better position than we were in the year before. And as you assess progress in a program, like we can't, Haven and I sitting back, we talk every week after we can't judge it based on whether we won a game or lost a game and say this is where the program is at because of what happened in that game. It's everything. It's why he's at practice every day, and I try to get to practice at least 2-3 times a week. It's being in the locker room. It's sitting in some meetings along the way, assessing the program in ways that you don't necessarily see it outside the walls of the Osborne Legacy Complex. And so I know where the program's going, and I'm highly confident in where the program's going to go from here. But we aren't there yet. And we talk about the investments that we're making from a recruitment and retention standpoint. We have to continue to we've made a lot of investments in the last 18 months in staff. We're not done there. We've got to have, you're no better than your weakest link. And we got to make sure our weakest link, the floor is really, really high. And so continue to make those improvements. But we're in a whole lot better place, I think, than even what I saw when I got here. And I think the expectations are, I know how we're recruiting. I know how young this roster is, and I know where the players were in day 1, and I know where they're at today. All I see is progress.
When did you know you could have a really good AD coach relationship with Matt when you got here? I mean, was it right off the jump, or did
I knew him. When he was at Temple, I took the job at Tulane. Temple, when he got there, was of the 100 at the time 130 programs in FBS, probably would have been 128. When I got to Tulane, it was probably 128. But by the time I got there, he was 2 years ahead at Temple, and I watched his teams, and that became, like, for us at Tulane, getting that was the aspirant. They proved at Temple that you could take a struggling program in the middle of a city and elevate it. And so I knew him from there. Now, we all talk a lot. One of my very best friends in the world is Pat Kraft. And so there's relationships, our wives had spent time together. So this wasn't walking into, I wonder what this guy's all about. I had a pretty good fundamental knowledge of who Matt was. And, fortunately, our relationship has grown so much because of the time we're spending together. But I knew who he was and what he was before I ever got the call for this job.
You talked about roster investment. How much does a moment like this with an extension bring clarity or momentum toward what that could look like moving forward?
I don't think it makes a kid say yes or a kid say no, right? But I do think the one thing people have an expectation of, they want consistency and they want certainty. And whether that's the staff around walking the halls, whether that's the kids that are on this roster, whether that's the ones we're trying to recruit, the more we can provide certainty and consistency, continuity. The human nature says those three things are really important to your mental state. So I think as much as we can do that, anytime we can do that.
Are you able to discuss any of the more specific details of the contract with numbers?
Sure. I think we probably have term sheets available that we can send you to, but in general, there's 2 years added to it. His contract that he was working off of was 90% guaranteed. The last 2 years remain 90% guaranteed. I think the unique feature to this contract, and one that I will tell you I think is maybe does not exist in college football, that you should see a lot more of, is that there is no base pay increase to this. There is, however, a clause that for every CFP qualification or appearance, and I said in a CFP of 16 or less. So if there's a CFP of 24, it's only if they're round of 16 or less. So if he's in that, his base pay for the term increases by $1 million. And that's stackable. So he goes to 4 in a row, his base pay in year 5 is $4 million higher than it was when that all started. And you know what? In that scenario, he's the highest paid coach in the country. And you know what? If we go to the CFP 4 years in a row, he should be the highest paid coach in the country. So I would tell you that is Matt's confidence and willing to bet on the program and how we're going to provide for him, and our confidence in what he can do when we provide for him. That is a truly mutual beneficial piece of this contract that is very unique and probably will not be the last of these, I think, that you see. The buyout resets. And one of the things about everybody, why do you continually renew contracts? There was 5 years left here. But the buyout is the single biggest protection that a university has from a coach, others being interested in a coach. And so maintaining that buyout, and the buyouts stagger. In a perfect world for all of us, your buyout would be the same both ways, right? Mine is. But it doesn't work that way in coaching. I didn't have an agent, right? But also the leverage is different. So 15 is the high standard for buyouts in the country. To my knowledge, there might have been one, but maybe zero of those that have ever left with that buyout, if you will. So that's as good a protection as we can have. And so really part of my motivation from a timing standpoint, I believe in the program, I believe in Matt. I also knew that we were going to get exposed with a low buyout, so we needed to get the buyout reset if we possibly could. So that was really why I initiated the discussions when I did.
How often do the buyouts reset?
They stair step down. So I think it's in ours it's 15 for a period, and then 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 as you get down later in years. And the fundamental thought behind that is if you haven't done something to renegotiate a contract by the time you get to 4, 5, or 6 with a coach, that you want the buyout to be as minimal as possible to provide that escape hatch. If you're not willing to renew, then you don't want to provide a hindrance for that coach to move on if you're not willing to bet on them.
What's the base for the last 2 years?
12.5. So the current contract, his last year's base is 12.5. So the last 2 years there is no increase. So it's 12.5, 12.5. Every year up to that provides for an increase. So again, it's truly one of those where we're all kind of betting on and with each other. His contract from a market, and how do you assess a contract based on what you expect for performance against the market? His contract was in a pretty good place from that standpoint. I think we both recognized that. So there was never a discussion about the base.
Hey, Troy. Louisiana's governor went on TV and kind of bashed what buyouts are and how other ADs have done it. Can you just speak more about that? Like, do you guys have conversations at your level about how you work with head coaches and figure out what a buyout would be?
There's a fine line between having conversations for best practices and colluding, right? And so, you avoid the collude. Most of these contracts are public. We all have access to services that aggregate those contracts, so we kind of know what everybody's doing. I know what the Big Ten numbers are. So from that standpoint, one of the things that college athletics is really bad at versus professional sports is we refuse to act as business partners ever. We're competitors in every respect, including what we try to do with contracts. You get to the professional ranks, they're business partners. Now, there's organized labor, so it's probably a different environment. But, in most all we do, we always consider it proprietary and it's some competitive advantage. So other than the records that you all get, that I get, that's my knowledge of what everybody else is doing and the whys. We all have people that have been mentors for us that kind of help explain and guide why this is best practice and why you should do that. Haven and I talk every day about what we're doing and why, so that when he's an athletic director, he's prepared to know what to do and why.
Not to take away time from contract talk, but you were very excited on your radio show the other week just talking about the elements of the blackout on Saturday and things that are going to be happening. Are you able to go into some things of what fans may expect?
Oh, Matt's talked a lot about it. I'd probably go outside and look at what they're doing to the field around 2 o'clock today.
Troy, you said you got a sense dating back to Tulane about who Matt is, what he's about. Who is he? What is he about that made this warranted?
Well, people want to pick on his overall record sometimes. He actually went into 3 rebuilds. It's one thing to go take a job on third base and get home and brag about that record. It's another thing to take a job where you're just coming into the batter's box and you're trying to get to first base. And he's done that 3 times. So I don't look at overall record from any respect. I just know I know what happened. I know the situation he walked into at Baylor. And we all know what happened to Baylor, right? And he walked in there and took that situation and managed to turn it into an 11-1 team within 3 years, right? And so, and I know who he worked for at Temple. I know who he worked for at Baylor. And those are 2 of the best ADs in the country, bar none. And so I know from those 2 programs how he can turn it and what he needs from my office, what he needs from Haven, what he needs from any of us to get that done. Our job, hiring a coach or retaining a coach, this is like one half of 1% of my world. It's probably the most important 1.5%. But the rest of the 99% of my day is trying to find ways to get him in a position to succeed. And, yeah.
When it comes to infrastructure and improvements, how much time do you actually spend with Coach Rhule and other coaches or even players talking about what they would like to see with the facilities and infrastructure here?
Well, I suppose, we redid the fields because, number one priority of Matt, go out in the practice fields a year ago. There was rocks coming up from them. There was no grass growing there. We need to fix that. That's really led and guided by the coach. That's the putting them in a position to succeed. So that's the reason we hang around him as much as we hang around him and know these things and know what's a burning wish versus a desire versus an absolute need necessity. Appreciate you. Thanks.